Well, it is big news. Governor Kate Brown announcing all Oregon counties moving out of extreme risk back to high risk starting Friday. And she says that change is because hospitalization rates didn't quite hit that metric to stay in extreme. KGW's Bryant Clerkley is live with more on what this means for businesses. Good morning, Bryant.
Good morning, Nina. And if your county was in extreme risk, like you said, Friday, you'll be moving to high risk. And that means restaurants and gyms can open at 25% capacity. And Crystal Law is the manager at Mangiari Italian Restaurant in Independence. We spoke with her last week after news of the closure and before anyone knew how long it would last. We checked with her again yesterday and she says she's grateful to avoid what would have been another big blow. Law is preparing to welcome everyone back on Friday and hopefully for good.
Mother's Day weekend is our busiest weekend of the year. So that is the revenue from that makes up for a lot of what we normally miss during the slow season in the winter.
Returning to high risk impacts sports teams too. The Timbers and Thorns tweeting, "We are excited to confirm that we can continue having our supporters in a limited capacity at Providence Park this weekend." This is important for the Timbers because they have their rivalry match with Seattle, and for the Thorns because they have their championship match Saturday. But for the Portland Trail Blazers, the news does not change anything. The Blazers are one of the few teams in the NBA that are not having fans at the home game yet. But John Canzano from the Oregonian did tweet that his sources tell him the Blazers will open up to 10% fan capacity this Friday. And Governor Brown did say that because of vaccination levels here in Oregon, she does not think that we'll have to return to the extreme risk category for the rest of the pandemic. Back to you guys.
All right, lots to keep track of. Thank you for the update. In Washington, Governor Jay Inslee is putting a 2-week pause on new restrictions. For now, every county in the state will stay in its current phase. In Southwest Washington, Cowlitz County is in phase 2. Clark and all other counties are in phase 3. Both phases allow for indoor dining with capacity limits. Data from the state shows a fourth wave is now hitting a plateau.
We're at the intersection of progress and failure, and we cannot veer from the path of progress. Our economy is starting to show early signs of growth. We've had great legislative victories on a number of issues, and we know vaccines are the ticket to full reopening, and we're very pleased about the success to date in that regard.
Washington will reevaluate each county in 2 weeks.
Let's get to 3 more things to know about COVID this morning. Number 1, masking and distancing rules for employers in Oregon have been extended indefinitely. The plan now is for OSHA to review the rules every 2 months until they're no longer needed. The masking and distancing rules started back in the fall. They require employers in Oregon to make sure their employees are safe by keeping workplaces properly sanitized and ventilated. Number 2, President Biden has a new vaccination goal for the U.S. He wants at least 70% of the country to have at least their first shot of the vaccine by July 4th. As of this morning, we can tell you about 56% of U.S. adults have gotten at least that first shot. And number 3, the CDC says anxiety is the reason some people fainted after getting their COVID shot. Dozens of people fainted last month after getting a shot of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The CDC is advising people who give the shot to check for anxiety-related reactions. And those are 3 things to know about COVID this morning.
Washington state's capital gains tax has been signed into law, and already there are lawsuits to stop it. So now, starting in 2023, anyone who makes more than $250,000 on the sale of stocks, bonds, and other assets would pay a 7% tax on those profits. The money will mostly go toward education. Investors already pay the IRS a federal capital gains tax, and states can charge one as well. This is controversial. Critics say it's the start of really what they consider an income tax, while supporters say it's vital.
Finally asking the wealthiest among us to pay their fair share.
This is a tax that's wildly unpopular with the folks around our state. The polls say that over and over. They've rejected similar attempts 10 times over the last 80 plus years. It's unconstitutional.
Another bill signed yesterday provides tax exemptions to low-income working families. That bill had bipartisan support.
A new study suggests the world's glaciers are melting faster than previously thought. Climate change and warming temperatures are the reasons. The glaciers are losing 31% more snow and ice each year compared to 15 years ago. This was an international study, but it holds true for our region too. There are about 5,000 glaciers in the western U.S., and a PSU glacier expert says they're all shrinking.
We fully expect that they'll continue to retreat through the end of this century. And they have been shrinking really quite rapidly, largely due to the warming sea surface temperatures and general climate warming in the Pacific.
Okay, think about this. If climate projections are correct, Mount Hood, for instance, will be almost glacier-free by the end of the century. That will impact recreation on the mountain, the agriculture below it, and our water supply. Scientists say dramatically reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and cooling our climate are the only ways to prevent this.
Well, after 8 months from last year's historic wildfires, we're still seeing a lot of people and families dealing with challenges on their road to recovery. This morning, Christine Pitawanich gives us a look at the effort to rebuild and how the people who live there reached out to help one another.
Yeah, it was just stunning. Huge windows.
This is what Dennis and Debbie Willer's dream home used to look like. A gorgeous place next to the river in Lyons where they planned to retire. They moved in July of 2020.
We said, this is the home we've been thinking of our whole lives.
But then just 2 months later, in September, wildfire roared through the Santiam Canyon. The Willers took off, driving through fire to get out.
Have to believe that within 20 minutes of us leaving, this house was totally engulfed and it was just gone. So it was scary. But when I saw that road with all the flames, my heart just sank. I said, we've just lost everything we've owned.
This is what was left of their home. Willer says he's glad that before the evacuations, he took pictures of everything they owned for insurance purposes.
It was about 232 pictures that I took.
When it came to rebuilding, at first, the Willers hoped to get help from FEMA, but then, unsure of the fine print and timeline, decided to clean up and rebuild privately.
We broke ground here on the 5th of February.
He's thankful he and his wife haven't had to pay for any of this out of pocket.
It's all been from insurance.
But drive down the road and some of his neighbors' properties look very different.
They're just waiting for FEMA.
The Willers feel blessed by the support they've received from friends and neighbors.
You know, they said, we're going to do happy hour every night, so you can just come over to our house, and if you just need an hour just to cry or
Just chat, yeah.
an hour just to chat, just come over.
And now, what they thought was their dream home will really be something they dreamed up themselves.
We're now getting the house we've always wanted.
Even though the house is still being built, the Willers have already spent one night here in their soon-to-be master bedroom for Debbie's birthday. The Willers tell me they expect their new home to be complete by mid-July. In Lyons, Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
Okay, check this out. Something a lot of people might be talking about this morning. Starlink satellites from a SpaceX rocket were lighting up the sky last night across the Pacific Northwest. We got pictures and video from all over. This one is from La Grande. Then OMSI sent us this video out of Canby. They say the Falcon 9 rocket launched yesterday with 60 satellites in tow. They're about 250 miles above Earth's surface, going at 17,000 miles an hour. The goal is to provide low-cost internet service to remote areas worldwide.